Hello, this is Dave with Arch Cabins. I want to show you a little bit of our original homestead. This is basically a simulation of a yurt or a gur. I've been all over Southeast Asia, looked at the Mongolians and what they were doing with gurs, what we commonly call a yurt. And I really like the aesthetics of the round shape of a house. Now this is a new spin to a yurt, steel structure with hard sides. When we were 50 years old, I got to looking at our retirement plan. $1,500 or $1,600 a month on Social Security just isn't going to cut it. But we came here and found a nice piece of property. And this was the first little house that I built. Not very big. This whole house is only 220 square feet. And this was the place where we'd stay while we were building our arch cabin. This is a real interesting little house. Like I said, I built it in panels in Houston, Texas. And they were 4-foot panels by 8 feet tall. And then I assembled it up here and I already had all the roof trusses. I built it with wood interior so it'd be durable. And the bed was made by me. The curtain rods were hand forged by me in the shop. All the paintwork you see around the top of this was actually scrolls that I had laying around the shop. And so I just laid them down and put a board top and bottom and sprayed them on there for just a little bit of decor touch all the way around it. And also the pot rack over here, which is kind of interesting. I built that to go over the kitchen sink and the stove. And we put a RV type stove in here. And of course it's got a cutting board for the top of it that we use for extra space, for counter space. But it's a 3-burner RV stove that I bought, and it's actually worked quite well. It's got a little oven in it, which was adequate for us to bake in. Just in a very small refrigerator. It's one, I don't even know how many square feet it was, but it's not much. But it worked very well for us at all. And of course the TV so we could watch movies at night. Over the years I have put a mini split after we hooked this up to power. I did put in a mini split heating and cooling system in here, which has absolutely been fantastic. We don't have a full bathroom in here, but we do have a toilet. And that was very necessary for the wife to keep her happy. So in the dead of winter, she didn't have to traverse out to the communal bathroom in the middle of the night, which I don't necessarily care for doing that either. But we do have a full bathroom next to this with a shower, washer, dryer, everything there. This one originally ran on solar power. It is hooked up to the grid right now, but this one's been sitting here for 15, 16 years, something like that. And it's held up remarkably well. I built a stained glass cupola for the top of it that gives us beautiful colors when the sun comes up in the morning. So this was very comfortable for us to live in for the 5 years or so that we built our arch cabins. And we were very comfortable here. We still feel very comfortable in here. The house just has a really nice feel to it. It's just a lot of wood, but it's very quiet and it's very serene in here at night when you sleep. Originally, when I started building this yurt, I built it in panels and materials were quite modest. Foundation is on center blocks, so it's not a whole lot of a foundation. It has stayed very solid, but you know, I probably had between $8,000 and $10,000 in this structure back 15 years ago, and now it's probably double that. So using wood components now is just pretty difficult because of the price of lumber. We're hoping that that moderates and comes down. But you know, this was a viable option for us at the time before I started building the arch cabins. But I started building these, and of course I built a bunch of different yurt sizes. And what we found out real quick was that this thing is really hard to put furniture in. Everywhere that you put something square in here, it's got a space behind it. Now what I did, I came in and I built a custom small kitchenette. And in fact, I mosaiced the top of this. I hand cut all the tile and mosaiced it. But this was the only way really feasibly to get furniture in the house that was pleasing to the structure. So you can't go in and buy something off the shelf at Home Depot like kitchen cabinets because they just don't fit. And so I was pretty disappointed. This is a hard top composition roof yurt, but we did build a lot of the canvas top yurts, and they told us we would get about 15 years on the heavy umbrella type material that we're using for the roofs. Well, lo and behold, here in the Southwest, we were only getting 4 or 5 years on those things. They're just rotting down. Not to mention a hailstorm just totally devastates the roof on those. You have to replace a whole roof. Now, the replacement roof on a yurt generally runs from $3,000 to $10,000. So if you have to do that every 3 or 4 years or 5 years, that's a pretty heavy hit to take on a house. It's not a very durable house. So that kind of turned me on to the arch cabins. After you build a number of different type structures, you absolutely know what works better, what's faster. This was pretty easy to set up, but not near as easy as the arch cabin. This took me a week to put the roof on it and put the fascia board on. Where an arch cabin, I could have gotten up this same structure in a day, and I could have finished it out easily in a week with all the interior and everything. Anybody can build an arch cabin. This here took a lot more work and a lot more pieces and a lot more of this and a lot more of that. And durability, no comparison. This has wood maintenance on the outside, wood paint that you have to do every 5 or 6 years. The arch cabins uses a 40, 50 year, depending on which style of exterior you choose, PBR panel, which is a 26 gauge material. And that's just gonna be color fast for 40 or 50 years. You don't have to do any paint work on it. So once we started producing the arch cabins, I was absolutely sold on the arch cabins design. I like the aesthetics, plus the height of them. You get a second floor in most cases. If we would have built this in an arch cabin shape, we would have gained another 50 to 100 square feet on the house. Plus the maintenance-free aspect of the home makes it an ideal choice compared to other structures. Hands down, I love this little building. It feels really good. And this was a start of an exit plan on our retirement. The whole arch cabin concept came to me actually as I was in the construction project of this little yurt. I started doing sketches, and I had seen a picture of a crux house in Lloyd Kahn's book called Shelter. If you haven't had that book, very worthwhile to get a copy of Shelter by Lloyd Kahn. I think you can find them on Amazon or a lot of different places. Very interesting book. It covers a lot of indigenous houses, including the yurts and the gers. But they had a crux house in there that was actually, in England, they used to have trees that would grow over the river, and as they went out over the river, they would curve. And what they would do, the woodcutters would go out, saw down the tree, saw it right down the middle and open it up until they had an arch shape. And that's where I came up with the arch cabins design. I said, that is so ingenious to take something and make an arch shape because it loads very well. It's very good in high winds, high snow loads, all those factors. So the wheels started turning, and I started thinking about what I considered a crux house at the time, which ended up being an arch cabin, much more friendly name. And I started working on the arch cabin right away and developing an arch cabin. I think I made some of the preliminary sketches even here in this little house, took them back to our shops in Houston and fine-eyed and scaled all the drawings. And we started manufacturing some of the small structures that are still in service today. And that's where the arch cabin came from. It actually kind of started right here in this little house some 15, 16 years ago. I think by the time you hit 50 years old, maybe a little bit younger, but 50 to 55, I think you really need to have a solid exit plan in mind if you're planning on getting out of the city. And in this day and time, we know a lot of people can't live in the city any longer because just of the base cost of living in the city. If you're extremely well off or have a big 401k or things of that nature, you're probably in a little bit better shape. But the average American that's a blue-collar worker, this is a really good option to move off-grid or even on-grid, small structure, arch cabin, and kind of start the second or third phase of your life in a peaceful, serene place like we have here in New Mexico. So we really enjoyed it. We would encourage anybody that's thinking about retirement in the near future to go ahead and look at structures, but especially the arch cabins. I'd like you to take a look at it because it just makes sense. Me being a builder, contractor, iron worker, I've built all kinds of structures, and by far, in my mind, and I think many others, it's probably the least expensive, most durable structure on the market. So let's think about arch cabins when you go to build.